So, as the title of the video says, Warframe apparently hates new players. It scares them off, confuses them, and if they do manage to stay around beyond the initial starter quests, they get left standing on their orbiter with no clue what they're supposed to be doing next, and to make things worse, they're in default colours with starter weapons looking basic as fuck because Fashion Frame hasn't hit them quite yet. So I guess the question to be asking from a community standpoint would be, what puts all of these new players off, and why did you stick around when others didn't? Why has the new player experience not been changed enough to help new players better understand the basics of Warframe and what they should be doing next, instead of leaving them in limbo? Well, not quite inside limbo, that would be enough to make anyone leave the game. Now, there is a few reasons that I could personally point towards, having played Warframe for so long, reasons for new players to feel intimidated or even put off from playing what is without doubt an incredible game, even if it is a complicated game. Now, I guess one reason would be the lack of instant gratification, or the lack, I guess, of sense of accomplishment. At lower levels, Warframe has no real sense of accomplishment. It is pretty barren. Warframe takes hundreds of hours before you can actually say that you've achieved anything, like the War Within, Second Dream, Rel, and so on. The later cinematic quests are what give us that sense of achievement. Also, because Warframe is a free-to-play game, some players believe that, like many other free-to-play titles, Warframe is a pay-to-win game. If it's free to play, then it has to be pay to win, which it's not. You can earn platinum in Warframe simply by trading items, but it has got a heavy microtransaction store, and the Prime Access packs are incredibly overpriced. So in the eyes of someone who has just jumped into the game and knows nothing about trading, it's going to look like it's pay to win or pay to skip the grind, which instantly puts players off. They don't want to have to invest time in a game that they feel may require them to spend real money further down the line, which is a real shame because that's not the way Warframe is at all. Now, as an example of this whole pay to win thought process, something that gets said on my channel a lot in the comment section is that when you start Warframe, you have a very limited amount of Warframe and weapon slots, which means unless you spend platinum, then you will need to sell weapons and frames before you can buy new weapons and frames, or you won't have the slots to acquire them. And the fact that these slots cost platinum is something that has never really sat well with me. I've never agreed with it. I've always believed that these should be made available for credits, because that would kind of help alleviate the whole problem of people believing that this game is pay to win and that you don't actually need to spend real money to have a new Warframe or have a new weapon. Another thing that a lot of players don't like is the fact that you have to wait 3 days in order to have your new Warframe. They don't get why you have to wait that long. You should be able to get it straight away. Now, another reason why a lot of new players back out and don't stick around with Warframe, and one that's a lot more probable, is that there is simply too much information being thrown at new players and not enough explanation. Information on Warframe abilities, Warframe stats, weapon stats, mods, endo, enemy types, mission types, clan research, and a mountain of ever increasing resources that keep getting added to the game, armor scaling, and so much more. There's a lot of information that we as veterans take for granted because we already know all of this, but when you sit down and think about it as a new player coming into Warframe, the game's learning curve is pretty damn steep, and having to take all of that information on board, or being told about it by other players, or reading up videos and seeing videos of builds, it would be very, very daunting. Now, mods are an aspect of Warframe that I feel aren't explained enough to new players, and considering that they are a fundamental part of the game, it seems really crazy that they're not explained too well. And yes, we have a codex, but do new players even know what the codex is when they first jump into the game? Of course they don't. So I feel like these mods should be explained a little bit better, or even have a quest or two related to actually teaching you how to go about getting the required mods for certain builds, like your pressure points, your hornet strikes, your serrations, basically the mods that are commonplace in every build of every weapon. I guess simply put, Warframe needs a better tutorial system to help new players better understand the core basics of the game without leaving them feeling overwhelmed or out of their depth and make them basically say, fuck this, I didn't sign up for this, I just want to sit back and have a load of fun, so I'm not going to play this game, I'm going to play a different game instead. A tutorial that gives them a direction and will show them where to go and how to go about getting there. The tutorial we have right now basically helps you get to your orbiter, get it up and running, and then it's, fuck, what do I do now, where do I go now? Like, what's this junction all about? What are these resources? What do I need these resources for? What are all of these other resources? Right now, I think they could just actually stop adding new resources with every major update as well. Right now, we have way too many, and Eidolon pretty much increased our grind tenfold with all of its own resources. And I'm pretty sure Venus, when the open world comes for it, it will probably have new resources as well, which will be a pain in the ass because we're going to have to grind all of those at the same time. Now, as an example for tutorials, when Monster Hunter World came out a few days ago, I decided I was going to jump into it, and honestly the prospect was daunting. I've never played a Monster Hunter game before, and the thoughts of having to learn weapons, their combos, their special mechanics, armor bonuses, and of course the monsters' moves and tells almost put me off, but I decided to take a chance. I said fuck it, and I jumped in, and I'm honestly glad I did. Its tutorial is simple and straight to the point, allowing me to sit back and enjoy what is an incredible game. There's still a lot I need to learn, but it gives you what you need to start hunting in order to learn the rest, and each new quest gives you an actual direction, whereas Warframe relies heavily on its own community and outside sources to teach people how to play their game, which in my opinion is a huge flaw. Now, I'm not trying to compare Warframe with Monster Hunter, they're completely two different beasts. I'm just using the tutorials as an example. Warframe at its core is a Wikipedia game, and not everyone uses Wikipedia. That's where you learn everything about the game, which is a huge shame. A new player shouldn't feel like he needs to sit up reading the Warframe wiki or Reddit instead of playing the game in order to understand aspects of what he needs to be doing next. I couldn't imagine jumping into a new game franchise with only a bare basic tutorial and having to go read up on damage types, resistances, stats and so on, instead of actually jumping into the game and enjoying it, or having to jump onto Reddit to ask its community what should I be doing next because I'm confused. It would kill my hype and I just wouldn't jump into the game and I wouldn't play it. And the funny thing is that if Warframe could go about explaining itself better to new players, then I strongly believe that the player base would be much larger. The game is a gem, and it's a bit of a hidden gem, still sitting a little bit under the radar for a lot of players, even with the Plains of Eidolon hype that it got. Now, over the last few months, I've seen countless Reddit posts proclaiming that Warframe is the game that Destiny 2 wishes it was. I've seen Destiny and of course Division content creators jump on the Warframe hype surrounding Eidolon, saying how amazing the game is and how have they missed it for so long, only for them to drop it after maybe 3 videos because the reality of the grind and everything involved is just simply too much work for them. Which is a pretty big shame because Warframe would benefit from having some of those amazing content creators around, making videos that would be different than the ones you're used to watching because they'd have their own spin on things. Like, imagine a Datto does Warframe. I know I'd watch the shit out of that, and I'm sure a lot of you guys would as well. Now, the one great thing to be said about Warframe and its community, and of course its developers as well, is that everyone is incredibly friendly. So if you are new to the game and you're stuck and you're needing a little bit of help, then don't be afraid to ask, because the majority of the Warframe community will help you out and point you in the direction that you need to go. So before I end the video, then answer me this one question: why did you stick around with Warframe when so many other players didn't? Was it because you had friends playing it? Was it because you just liked the art style, or it simply clicked with you? Or when was the first time that you felt truly lost as a new player and maybe considered putting the game down? Because my new player experience happened all the way back in 2013, and the game has changed a lot since then, but there was a lot less to do back then as well, a lot less resources to gather, a lot less weapons, a lot less warframes, and of course a lot less information to get buried under as you were joining the game as a new player. So do me a huge favour and hit that like button if you enjoyed the video, or don't if you didn't. Subscribe for more Warframe, and as always, thanks very much for watching.
Stepping out to whatever's coming on. Stepping